So welcome everybody to today's Incubate session. Today we have Darrell. A little bit of background about Darrell. He's been doing marketing for a while. He actually also helps us through his company Yoko Loco with some of our own marketing stuff. A lot of it's on social media. A lot of it's, some of the stuff that we boost to make sure that we get our content out and people are aware of our programs. Great thing is he is here to help you really understand how marketing can help you with your startup. Please ask a lot of questions. He is an expert in his field. And I think would you be okay if people had questions after if they contacted you?
All of it, yeah. I've got my contact information in here.
Perfect. Okay, well, from there, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Roxana, and thank you, Maggie, for having me, and StartUpNV for continuing to invite me back. We've been working together now for probably 3 or so years, 3-4 years, something like that. And they wanted me to talk a little bit tonight about demand generation marketing. And I want to start quickly with sort of this, I don't know what it is actually, like the word academically means something, I'll talk about that. I've grown up in the world of lead generation, which is how we get closer to selling a product or a service. But let's jump right in. We've got a little bit of an agenda, and I'm going to do my best to power through it so that we can open up the Q&A. I think the best thing about getting together one-on-one or virtually is really the Q&A. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to show you anything you haven't heard of or seen today. And I think the best opportunity is for us to have some dialogue back and forth about whatever your specific use cases are in your business. So that's what we're going to run through really quick. For those that don't know me, again, I'm Darrell Evans. I was actually born here in Las Vegas. I'm an entrepreneur since I was 20 years old when I went to UNLV and got a degree in finance. I was an electrical engineering major at first and got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. I'm the CEO and co-founder of YokoLocal.com, which is a digital marketing agency here. We started in 2011, right kind of in the heart of the last recession, if you will. And our mission was to really work with small to mid-sized companies and help them grow and scale online. We've done pretty well. I can't continue to count the revenue because the IRS or whoever it is, the FTC, if you can't prove every dollar, you got to stop talking about it. So we stopped talking about it there, but that number was about 4 years ago. I'm also the creator of the Growth Driven Entrepreneur Community. It's my private community where I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and marketers that are not necessarily ready to hire an agency yet. And we host monthly classes, more or less, 4 to 6 weeks. And so we've got that. I'm the host of the Mindship Podcast, which is an entrepreneurial discussion about the journey of this crazy thing we call entrepreneurship, right? From inspiration to realization, I got this great idea. How do I make it come to life? And then, of course, when life knocks us down, how do we get from what I call breakdown to breakthrough? And fun fact, I have a very unhealthy obsession with the Food Network. I'm not sure in a previous life, or if I went back, I wouldn't have been a world-class chef because I'm that fascinated. Because this will go fast-paced tonight, 2 ways to connect with me afterwards for whatever reason. If you just want to follow on social, I'm pretty much easily accessible at that handle. And then if you want to text me or call me, whatever the case is, I'll leave that on the screen for you for just a moment. I'm perfectly fine with quick questions and things of that nature. So I'm pretty accessible. I'm living here in the community, so you guys can find me pretty much everywhere. Although post-pandemic, we don't have an office anymore, so we are a virtual team now. So let's dive in. So let's kind of start with the basics. And again, I don't want to spend too much time here, but when I think about demand generation, what actually is it? And I'm a very simple guy, so I like to think of it as the time prior to someone moving into a sales process. So it's where you're bringing awareness or interest to your product or service, where then lead generation is when someone has had what I like to call a triggering event. The distinction for me in my growth as an entrepreneur, learning both sales and marketing, and of course, everything else that goes on along with business, is this one phrase. And this one phrase is how I sit down and when we're working with clients, how we look at what is the triggering event in our prospective customers' life or in their mind or in their thought process that would trigger them to move to a different stage of the journey into your world. And so what I'm going to do today is spend most of my talk talking about what I think is the most important part of the marketing process. A lot of people get caught up in the tactics, and whether it's email or Google ads or Facebook. And I grew up learning a lot about strategy. I played sports growing up, and I didn't realize that what I learned in sports would apply to entrepreneurship quite well. Most of what we did as players, we followed our coaches' instructions. Those coaches' instructions were built on preparing us for a game. the preparation of that game was to beat an opponent or to play as good as we could against an opponent. But in order to do so, that opponent changed every week. So they had to think strategically about how they could prepare us. We all played with the same football. We all had the same type of helmets. Everything was the same. And I think in digital marketing specifically, which is my domain, by the way, I did tons of offline marketing, but this talk is about digital. The tools, the tactics, they're all the same for everyone. But why are some winning and some losing? I think it lies at this triggering event. And so we're going to talk about what I think we have to do in marketing to before this triggering event happens. And of course, I just had to put the necessary, obligatory sales funnel slide on the screen because there's so many different dialogues out there. Is it an MQL? Is it an SQL? Is it brand awareness? I mean, all of these things. But I think we're all fairly, if we're, I don't know the audience, if everyone here seems to have had a business for some time, but what we're talking about from demand side is more of that top of the funnel side, more of that top portion where what are we going to do to get awareness for the products and get interest for the product? I'm sure everyone here, whether you enjoy football, American football or not, you know about the Super Bowl, right? Why on God's green earth do they run $7 million? Did people pay $7 million for Super Bowl ads this year? Last year it was 6.5, the year before it was 6.2 or whatever. Well, it's because 115 million people watched that game during that 3-hour event. So do they expect that we're going to stop what we're doing in the middle of the game and go buy Liberty Life Insurance, Liberty Mutual? Or, right? I mean, you might run out of beer and go buy Budweiser, but they didn't run an ad this year. But you're not going to stop and go buy Mountain Dew unless you run out. I mean, you're not going to stop and transact business. So they're doing that to bring awareness. And I would think of it as, they call it advertising, but I would think of it as demand generation, right? Remember about 2 years ago, I would say not this Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl before, there was an ad by a little company that's becoming pretty popular in the crypto space called Coinbase, right? Everybody's heard of Coinbase. You guys remember what that ad was? Okay, I'll simplify it. Nothing. The ad was nothing but a QR code moving around the screen. You remember that? It was just a QR code. You can Google it. You'll find it on YouTube. They literally spent $6.5 million. By the way, I'd love to have been the marketing genius who got paid for that idea because that's all it was a QR code floating on the screen. But guess what they were likely able to get people to do because they know you've got your mobile phone in your hand. I thought it was brilliant. And at the very least, you're downloading the app. Didn't mean go buy crypto or Bitcoin or whatever, but you got the app if you were paying attention. So I think of things like that. Now, we're small businesses here, most of us, we can't do gimmicky stuff and spend $6 billion. But that's what we're trying to do to get people into awareness. We got to figure out how we're going to bring what we're doing to people's attention. And so I always like to say that in all of what we do, good morning, hey, how are you? Come on in, you're perfectly fine. Welcome to a Saturday night. I'm still impressed there's this many people here on a Saturday night. In my journey as a marketer, again, I started in the world of sales. And so I think I started on the right side of the equation. I started in the world of cold calling. I was in real estate at the time when I did. Actually, my first business was selling products, sportswear, hats, T-shirts. And for those that live in Vegas, the Broadacre Swap Meet, which was in North Las Vegas on Lake Mead and Las Vegas Boulevard, roughly, or Lake Mead and Pecos, wherever those streets crossed. That's where I cut my teeth as an entrepreneur. I bought a spot every weekend for Saturday and Sunday, and I went out and sold T-shirts and shirts and hats and sportswear. And so, but moving into the world of marketing in the mid-90s, I realized that everything comes down to, in terms of, we can't do what the Super Bowl does. So we've got to be very specifically tuned in to who our target audience should and could be. I, in my work, have this question a lot. And they, we'll ask the question, so tell me who your target audience is. And the question, sometimes the answer comes out, everyone who, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wrong answer. It can't be everybody who, unless we just have endless dollars to spend, like that $6.5 million, $7 million Super Bowl. So I'd like to spend some time talking a little bit about how I think about it and how we think about it in terms of the way we do marketing. And by the way, none of this is unique to our company, but I think I've got a unique perspective on it 30 years later, 6 personal businesses, and now 360 businesses we've helped in some way, shape, or form at the agency, not to mention those that we've coached or trained online. So when I think about the target audience, a lot of people initially, how many people are familiar? I know for those in the room, if you're in the chat, I can see the chat a little bit, but we're familiar with the phrase buyer persona. And there's other words, right? Buyer persona, customer avatar, ICP, those words are the same thing. And what we notice about them is that they're made up of several characteristics. Demographics, who are they? How old are they? Where do they live? What's their income range? And those are what we call the demographics. And inside of that, we think about what are those people's goals, not just in buying our product or service, but in terms of really messaging and building a marketing. We got to understand what their goals are, not just in what we sell, but what are they actually chasing in life? I like to say, what are their aspirations? I like to say that sometimes if we can sell to their aspiration, or if our product or service fits their aspiration, like no one wakes up in the middle of the night wanting to hire a digital marketing agency. No one in 12 years has been that jazzed up to speak to us. It's just not that. Their aspiration isn't even ranking on the first page of Google from an SEO perspective. It's not getting 10,000 followers on Instagram. None of that matters. You know what the only thing that matters? Cash in the bank, right? Getting customers to buy the product or service, but all of these other things are in line. We also like to think about their challenges, and we'll walk you through a little bit of way how we think about it. Challenges and pain points are what I like to do with small businesses, small and mid-sized companies. We want to work from the challenge and the pain point strategy because we want to make sure, let me say it this way. There are two primary drivers, people say, psychologists say, that drive us. One of them is pain, one of them is pleasure. And I tell a quick story, Vegas is a great way to talk about it. Let's imagine we're walking down the strip for just a moment, and we see someone standing on the side, and it's a really busy street, and we're walking down the street, and we see a guy holding up a sign that says, get your free $500, right? I mean, we got different handbills down here. We're not talking about those kind. But this person says, free 500 bucks, free 500 bucks. And you're just in this busy street, you're about to approach. What is your thought about this free $500 sign? Like, we all have one, right? I'm not gonna ask you to answer now, we can talk about it later. Most people, when I talk about that example, you're getting closer to the offer, you're getting closer to the offer, you're getting closer to the offer, and you're thinking, he's a lunatic, he's crazy, there's a catch, he's a kidnapper, or something evil, right? And then there's a couple people, usually in my audiences, who will say, oh, I'll take it because it's my bet, it's my lucky day. The universe meant that I was supposed to have, right? I'll get that, but it's usually about 95 and 5. 95 say they wouldn't touch the guy, wouldn't even step close to him. But here's the punchline. You walk by that same guy and you trip and fall on accident and you injure your knee and you can't get up. If you're a woman, your purse is on the floor, dude, you're hurt, you can't get up. That same person drops a sign and offers you aid on the side of the strip. Do you accept the aid? The answer is 100% yes. What's the point? When we're trying to get product and service or get the attention of our product, of our ideal customer, our target audience, it is often and more profitable to get it from a point of pain. Can you enter their world from a point of pain so you can relieve them of pain versus sell them the pleasure, right? Again, I feel like I've got a degree in psychology through experience, but psychologists will say it's hard to sell someone the pot of gold because there's no trust with a stranger. But they'll take a stranger's help when they're in pain and in trouble. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. And then, of course, in our target audience, we got to understand their purchasing behavior. Do they want to buy online? Do they want to buy offline? How do they buy? And of course, today we have numerous demographics in our customer avatars. And some of our customers today won't even pick up the phone and make a phone call. True or true? You know which group I'm talking about, right? They're the ones I call the joker kids I got at home. They don't want to pick up the phone. They'll text you. My daughter's at college, and she'll send me a text. Dad, why you didn't get back in touch with me? I need to talk to you. I'm like, why you didn't call? So I sent you a text. Why you didn't call? Well, I sent you a text. So anyway, let's talk about a quick exercise. I want to leave you with probably the signature exercise that I think about when we work with customers about how do we think about getting out of our product or service and into the mind of our customer. And I call it the 11 o'clock exercise. And the reason I do that is because I like to transport my customers into a mindset where it gets a little bit away from their product and service, mine included, and really transport ourselves away from what we want to say about it, the products, the features, the benefits, the things that it can actually do. And what I want to do is imagine that your customer, your prospect, is awake at night at 11 o'clock at night, and they can't sleep, and they would really prefer to be asleep. And this isn't probably the first night that they've been awake at 11 o'clock at night. See, they're not on the internet searching for your thing. They're not at the networking group shaking hands with you. They're awake. They can't sleep. Call them sleepless Sam, sleepless Sally, but they can't sleep. What do they want? Why can't they sleep? And this is in relationship to your product or service, right? Remember, nobody hires my company because they just want to hire a digital marketing agency. They have another problem. So we want to come backwards and say, what do they want? Why do they want it? They can't sleep. They want something. What do they want? And then why do they want it? This is work. Now, if you've got 20 years in the business and you happen to have customers, this exercise can be easy, but you can probably use some of that as it relates to your new business or product. But if you haven't sold anything yet, then you have to figure out where to go find that, okay? What do they want? Why do they want it? Big point. What will happen if they don't get it? What will happen if they don't get it? No one has to buy anything until they want to. We don't sell really anything. I've been in business a long time, and I've realized I've never gotten money from someone who didn't want to give it to me because they wanted what the benefit was of the thing that they were trading the dollars for. What do they want?
Solution.
Right, what is the solution? What will happen? Will there be a consequence if they don't do it, right? We all watch Super Bowl commercials, and there's no real consequence if we don't take action on any of those products. But as we're thinking about generating interest, and we don't have unlimited budgets, we really got to figure out what do they want, why do they want it, and what will happen if they don't get it, right? What are their alternatives? And what don't they know that could be standing in their way? What don't they know? What are the pitfalls? A lot of times when we're small businesses, we don't realize the opportunity to showcase our expertise. People buy, you ever heard this phrase? People buy from who they know, like, and trust. Like, I've been around a long time. That phrase has been floating around. I don't know who invented it, but it does seem to be true. It just does. My company is not the only digital marketing agency. In fact, you'd argue there's far too many digital marketing anybody's on the planet. There's more consultants, there's more specialists, there's more courses, there's more certifications. Everybody seems to do it. But people ultimately buy most of the time if they trust us, if they trust our methodology, if they trust and so for you in your product or service, it's the same thing. Why did I sign up for an Apple card? Last I checked, they sold computers and iPhones and iPads, and now they have credit cards. Why did I do that? Because I trust them. I figure that if they already own my universe and they've cut a deal somehow, I don't know if it's a good deal or bad deal, I'm just saying, but I get Bank of America in the mail, I get Chase in the mail, I get this bank, that bank, they're going to trash. But I've developed, they go to trash, right? But for some reason, I signed up for the Apple card, no problem. Push a button, approved, it went into my phone. I ain't even got the real card yet. I don't even know where that's at. So what's standing in their way? What's standing in their way is really important as we get going because we can build trust. And again, what are their consequences of not getting it? Those are just some questions that we think, but that's not the whole exercise because then we go a little deeper. And we spend more time doing this. We can spend a whole day doing this with our clients because we're really trying to get our customer to really unpack the human emotion of their customer, right? Now, you might say, well, you've got different types of customers in your niche. One of my businesses was in the mortgage industry. Well, there are all kinds of buyers. There's first-time buyers. There's people who own a home and want to refinance. There's people who buy million-dollar homes. There's people who buy vacation homes. There's people who buy investment property, and they all think differently. This exercise I learned in 2002. It was called an empathy map. And by the way, I'm assuming these slides are going to be downloadable somewhere. If not, I'll make them available. And again, we don't have time to go through it, but these are the types of questions we're thinking about when we're trying to think about going to market from an interest or an awareness standpoint, as well as this applies in the lead generation. Like, who are we actually, what are their goals? We were sort of talking about, this is a different way of looking at what we just talked about. What I like is just, you can draw this on a piece of paper. What are they hearing in the marketplace about your product or service? What are they hearing about the alternatives? What are they hearing about their choices? What are they seeing in the marketplace? What's in their immediate environment? I remember back in the days when I was in the mortgage business, part of what they saw was they saw their friends buying a certain house or another that they couldn't afford. What did they hear? Well, they heard that their friend got this rate, but then today they're buying and their rate's up here. So you have to be cognizant in your marketing to know what's the environment doing to them, right? What are they thinking? What are their goals? These are the goals and aspirations. And then what do they actually say and do? How do they actually take action? Some people buy differently. And just like we talked about, the different generations of kids today and adults, baby boomers all the way down, we all have different buying habits. And that also plays into how we might want to market to them, right? So, if you're marketing to a 20 to 35-year-old company or a person, and you're not using text marketing in some way, shape, or form, you're going to miss a good chunk of folks, right? So anyway, just these are two big exercises, not the whole thing, but I definitely wanted to bring that to your attention. The customer journey is super important, right? Everyone here would agree with this statement that the buyer's journey, how we as consumers use anything in the world of buying. I mean, how many people today buy from Amazon? Haven't been to a store in 2 years, probably. Some of you, I know who you are. I know who you are. But again, smartphones, social media, the internet, Amazon, everything's changed. And so what we need to think about, there's 5 things that I think about in the buyer's journey, because ultimately, if we're going to bring interest and awareness to our product, we got to know how our consumer behaves. How are they acting today, not just with our product, but how are they acting elsewhere? I think about Amazon. I didn't jump on Amazon until 2015. But do you notice that we don't shop on Amazon? You don't shop on Amazon, you buy on Amazon. Yeah, see, I got nods in the headroom. If you follow that, you can drop a 1 in the chat. I'll see it eventually. I just messed up my own slides. But we buy on Amazon. We don't shop on Amazon. It's a distinction, but we don't shop. I've never once gone to Amazon and just decided to run around for a while. But we'll still go to the mall and still walk around and go in there for 2 hours and do nothing. So we got to research really what our clients are doing. Our customers want control of everything. They have their own phones, they have their own smartphones, and now with ChatGPT, they can research just about anything they want, right, wrong, or indifferent. But the world is changing super, super fast. Today, there's a growing concern for personalization. They want personal experiences. They want experiences that are unique to them. Now, we can't make that always the case for every single buyer. And then the third one here is we definitely, I think this is the overwhelm that I'm seeing with our customers, with our business, is that we feel like we have to be everywhere. And maybe that's a yes, but we also have a way of thinking about kind of a strategy of how we go to market when we're really trying to focus on a lean number of channels or a lean number of places to start getting our customers' interest. So where are they getting their information? Where do they want to engage? Where are they hanging out? What channels are they on? And then the last 2 things are, how are they educating themselves, and how do you fit into that educational process? That's critical. Like, we are making decisions. I knew what car I was going to buy. I knew the pricing. I bought a car 4 years ago. I knew the price. I knew the color. I knew the options. I knew what it cost. I knew. I needed to make. I went online. They called me. You got the car? You don't got the car? It's no problem. Oh no, we don't have the car. Okay, great. I called the other place. They had the car. I bought the car. It's different. Not everybody does that, but it's different. So when someone calls my agency, I assume they already know exactly what we do. So you know what I say when I get on the call? So what made you call us? I already know they know. They know SEO, they know YouTube, they know all of it. This guy called the other day. 1.9 million followers, 1.5 million views per month on YouTube, 160,000 subscribers on their email list, 16,000 customers. I got all the data. I'm like, so why'd you call us? Because I already know you know what you're doing. I already know you know what you're doing. So I gave him the respect of knowing that you're already educated. Not only that, you take action. And all of our customers are doing that. And again, to finish with this idea, he had a choice. And this is why our agency exists. There's only one reason people hire an agency. I don't want to staff and build a team. I don't want to staff and build the capability in-house. So I'd rather partner with an agency. It's about the only reason they hire us. Once they know we have a methodology. So trust. We're trying to develop trust in our market and in our generation. And what I will say about this last component here is this combined with that are gold. Our buyers will be ready when they're ready. And I've been using this strategy for like 20 plus years. I have a philosophy that I don't care when someone might be interested in buying my thing. But if they come into my world, I want to educate them about how we can help them. Remember, because we're trying to think, what is the pain? What is the problem? What is the triggering event that could make them want to buy my thing? And will they trust me enough to do it with me? Doesn't mean I'm the lowest price. It doesn't mean I'm the only in the market, but will they trust me enough? We used to do live events before the pandemic, and I think we're back to thinking about doing them next year. And this guy named Richard used to come to the events, and tickets would be, pretty inexpensive, 97 or 297 VIP for a couple-day event. And he would just say, Darrell, I just feel like you guys gave away too much stuff. How do you make money if you give away all this stuff, all this information, all this strategy, all that, And then he asked me after the second event that he attended, and he says, I just don't get your business model. And I said, well, here's the thing. My job is to get you educated about the thing that you have to do now on your own. You don't like to do it on your own, but you can't afford us yet. So you said, and I just want to make sure that when the day comes, you trust us so much that you'll never look at anybody else in the marketplace. And it cost me nothing to do it, right? And he's like, I never thought about that. And so it's been the model for a long, long time. Everyone's familiar with the traditional digital buyer's journey and all of the different things. I'm not going to go through this point and click, but it is about awareness. And how are we doing that today? Obviously today, print media is falling apart. Display advertising in different places is falling apart. Word of mouth is obviously still one of the best ways, but word of mouth isn't scalable, in my opinion. I love word of mouth referrals. They convert very easily. Generally, it's just not scalable. You can't necessarily guarantee when you get referrals to your business. So it's not a great strategy. So obviously we talk about, TV, radio, billboards, those kind of things. They're still around, cost quite a bit. I'll share something with you in metrics. I do a lot of studying between what's still effective with TV, radio, and billboard, even though that's not what we do. We have media partners where it makes sense. But it is interesting how we spend most of our time with social media, email, and text at that far to the left awareness side. And I'll share some numbers really quick in context, even though we can't get into the entire strategy. And if there is some interest, I can point you to an hour and a half long training that I did on what we call a $1 a day social media ad strategy to drive awareness. It's $1 a day. Someone in the room was like, what are you talking about? Peter's like, what? Okay, so when we go to market and start thinking about this, there's obviously no shortage of places. I actually hated to put these all on the screen. And it could have been 3-4 screens because there's no shortage of places to find your potential customers. But I'll say this, I developed a method back in the day when I started one of my businesses. This is 2000, and I was dead broke. I was living on my grandmother's couch in North Las Vegas. I'd gone through a really difficult life scenario, and I literally had no money. I mean, I didn't have a lot of options. I could have done the traditional thing, cold call, door knock, and all of that hand-to-hand stuff. But it was, I chose marketing and advertising because that was what I kind of knew. And I developed a philosophy of saying, okay, who's the only one customer? If I could only sell this to one customer, who would it be? Of all the customers available, all the particular buyer avatars or customer personas, what's the one person who I could sell it to? And so I figured out who is that one person. Then what's the one way that I might want to meet them? And it could be any of these today for you, right? We've got clients that they spend, I can think of one of our customers, they have a $300,000 a year trade show budget, still to this day for awareness. $300,000. You know how much they spend on digital? Only $50K. It seems lopsided to me, but they're an old school business, and that's still where they invest all their money for awareness. Thought leadership is becoming a brand new channel. It's called kind of a new media channel. I do think that although it's really popular, I wouldn't recommend most people start with a podcast unless you're a guest on podcasts who already have the audience of your customer who you're trying to become aware. Building an audience with a podcast, I've got one now for 3.5, almost 4 years, harder than I thought, actually. Just harder than I thought. Just some of the other things, easy, right? Ads on Facebook, social media. SEO is becoming tougher and tougher to bring awareness to your product and service. SEO is kind of like real estate. For the specific keywords that your business may want to rank for, there is a limited amount of space, and people who moved early have the space. And you can't just bump them away, even if you bring in a company like ours, because there's metrics online that your website won't have when you first get started. So a lot of people come to us, still to this day, 80% of them come to us asking us for inbound marketing or SEO. And it's you have to be patient 6 to 18 months to really see results. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I'm not sure you should do it first anymore if you're just getting started as a startup. We're going to tell people either ABM, social media, or PPC. because those are controllable outcomes. ABM is basically cold outreach to targeted prospects or targeted buyer personas. And of course, with social media and PPC, you can get extremely targeted about where you want your ads to show, who you want them to show to. Again, can't go too deep here, but I do want to talk about metrics because a lot of people get caught up on what we should be measuring. Given that this talk is a little bit more about interest and awareness, the metric on the screen here, these are the 7 kind of metrics that guide our agency and how we run things. We're a data-driven company largely. We're not a creative agency, which means you're not going to come to us to get us to build you the billboard that goes in Times Square. That's not what we do. We drive awareness, engagement, and action and sales, right? That's kind of what we do. So CPM, I want to spend just a moment on CPM. Cost per mil is what it's technically called, but it's really how much does it cost for 1,000 impressions of your brand in front of someone's eyes? Go back to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl was $7 million this year, and they say 115 million people watched the game. We don't know if all of them watched the ad, but if we just do math, if we take $7 million and divide it by 115 million people divided by 1,000, it comes out to like $55 or $65. I can't remember in my head, but somewhere in that $50 to $60 range. So that's 50 or 60 bucks just to put the ad in front of 1,000 people. Now we can't do it because we don't have $7 million and they don't let you buy it off at $60 a slot. So, but we can go into Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and play the CPM game all day for $5 to $10 CPM at whatever budget you want, including $1 a day on Facebook and Instagram. It's $10 a day on LinkedIn. It's $1 a day on YouTube. I don't use Twitter. Twitter's weird for me. We don't touch it. And what's left? Did I cover? We're not doing anything on Snapchat. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are the primary drivers. But CPM is very interesting because what you're really doing is digitally, I'm speaking digitally, you're replicating a billboard on a freeway, except that you can control who sees it. So the billboards on the freeway, they're just there for all the cars to run by, right? Average billboard in Vegas, I think on highways are still $3,000 a month, right? And they're just selling you on how many times someone's going to see or drive by the billboard. And even the Super Bowl, they don't know who's watching the game. They're just going for broad impressions. But in digital, we can get pretty niched. We can say, hey, we want to show it just to entrepreneurs. We want to show it to just parents of teenagers. We want to show it to people who have gone to the University of, I'm working with a dentist right now. We're only showing ads to people who went to dental schools. Now, the idea would be if they went to a dental school, they're either a dentist or a hygienist or someone, he's only looking for dentists, but we can narrow it down there. So we're not, his ad campaign is running to a total of 200,000 people nationwide. And there's roughly 180,000 dentists in the United States. So there's 100,000 overlap in there, but we'll take that over advertising to 300 million people on Facebook, right? So we run the CPM game there for awareness. Cost per engagement, cost per view is for video ads. By the way, if you're talking about visibility and awareness and interest, video is the least expensive way for you to get in front of your target audience. And what do I mean by that? You can take videos as little as 15 seconds. We run videos as long as 3 minutes. I've run tests out to 10-minute videos, which are essentially podcasts. And you can get people to watch an entire video who never knew your brand for 25 cents or less in B2B. Not selling watches and jewelry and clothes, but I mean B2B. We can really, so you want to talk about getting awareness with video. Cost per engagement is another metric. These two are very similar, except this is usually without a video. This is with a video. And then of course, down here, we're starting to get more into lead generation, but those still matter. So I just wanted to kind of draw this top line up here. What would you expect if you start a CPM campaign doing awareness? If you're in social, somewhere in that $5 to $10 CPM, which is far better than a television ad, far better than, we have television companies try to get us to pitch their streaming ads right now on Hulu and things of that nature. And they're still $35 to $40 CPM. So cheaper than a Super Bowl, cheaper than other television, but it's still $35 CPM. We generally, small, medium-sized companies can't afford that. We will pay that if we're trying to get a lead, that's different. But when we're just trying to bring awareness, we like to be up in that top end. And I want to get to some questions. I was gonna go over a couple of quick case studies for what it's worth. They're not your industries necessarily, but and this really ties into your buyer avatar, because here was a local company. They actually now have been bought out. Nula Collision was a collision center here in Vegas. They were doing roughly $4 million, so they weren't brand new to the market, but they had been struggling online. They couldn't figure it out. And so 4 million was kind of the old school, hard ground and pound, partnerships through the insurance agencies. They couldn't figure out the online thing. And we spent time with the 11 o'clock exercise, the empathy map that we did earlier. And all we did was we tried to say, okay, no one is going to have a Rolodex of collision centers in their pocket, right? No one's going to go look in advance just in case the day comes that they get in a car, right? No one's, same thing with personal injury attorneys or plumbers for that matter. Love them all. We've helped them all. But no one's, you can't, what are you going to do to get awareness if you're a collision center? Show up on the 8 o'clock Grey's Anatomy and run your ad there? I mean, it's not practical. So what we did was we learned something about the psychology of someone when they got into an accident, because awareness for them was now o'clock. That's my phrase for like now. How do you get awareness when they are in an emergency, right? So what we found out about the industry was that the insurance companies would try to get you to work with their insurance company because there was a relationship there. And the customer didn't, or the person in trouble with the damaged car didn't necessarily know for sure if that was a good idea or not. They had an insurance company. They were like, well, shouldn't I talk to my insurance company too? Well, what we realized was we got into the emotions of the average person who had a car accident in this city. They don't know how they're going to get to work tomorrow. Johnny's got to get to soccer practice. Susie's got piano, right? If I miss one more day at work, they're going to fire me at the Horseshoe. I mean, Peter's laughing, but this is we got deep into what is the average consumer who gets in a car accident in Vegas. So we decided, we talked to the owner. The owner was fantastic, still fantastic. He's still a customer of ours today, even though he got bought out. He went into another market and opened another shop and came back to us. But we realized, we said, Mike, is there a way to get the estimate on the car without bringing the car to the shop? Is it possible? He goes, yeah, well, because he's been good at this. He's like, yeah, if I've got the VIN number and some other things from the car, and I can get 4 photos of the damage, we are willing to guarantee. That was the game changer, you guys. He did nothing different. All we did was stop and say, at the 11 o'clock exercise, which this person could have been 3 p.m. on I-15 in Charleston, or it could have been 8 a.m., right, in the school zone, in the neighborhood, because someone ran a stop sign. All we did was say, let's meet them where they are. That was a very interesting case study. The business, we did all the rest of the things, the ads, all that was normal. All we did was understand the psychology. And again, from an interest standpoint, we had to figure out how could we intercept that. Silk cards. Seemingly a business card company like moo.com or Vista Print. You guys have heard of those companies? That's what they do, except everything was custom manufactured. They had their own custom manufacturing machine, and they were literally made out of silk. These were the fanciest, coolest cards you'd ever seen in your life. But how can someone tell when they're on Google or on social media that these cards are not the same as the rest of the cards, right? So we ended up finding out that one of their buyers that we would use to find out were people that were already creators who wanted style and design. So I'm trying to reverse engineer how we thought about this, but we ended up carving out niche markets, back to the buyer persona. Again, how did we find out? We started marketing to tattoo artists, to real estate agents that sold high-end property. And we started going to these really niche photographers, people that already had a design eye. And then we called out specific campaigns to bring awareness to that audience, because I didn't care about it. I'm not a designer. My business card was fine. I was not their customer. But what we did was we spent time during, quote unquote, that 11 o'clock exercise, the empathy map, that kind of thing. Okay, just a couple of ways, but I brought all that up to say, it's taking that extra level, especially when we're startups, to really try to understand what's going to get our customers' attention. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're calling it. It's if we're trying to bring awareness or interest, then we've got to try to figure out how to meet them where they are. Not the, I got $500, I hurt my knee, can you help me out, right? It's just a subtle distinction, but it's so critical. Let's wrap up with some best practices. We already kind of talked about them. Again, your target audience, be very clear about their needs, more specifically their pain points. Content is really the driver of any of it, right? What is a television ad? It's content. What is a billboard? It's content. What is radio? It's content. Content marketing, this new phrase that it's not new, right? It's all content. So we've got to define what kind of content are we going to use. We've got to pick a channel. We've got to be careful not to pick too many of them. And data, of course, matters. And then, of course, when we get into lead gen and customer service, these are kind of basic for business today. But we are very big on data. That's why I want to share those couple of data points. That idea around CPM, a lot of people don't know that you can go get $1 a day campaign started on Facebook and Instagram and let it run forever. I mean, not ever, but it's that easy to do. Now, is that going to convert leads? Let's not confuse the two. One's for interest and awareness, top of mind awareness. One is for lead gen. Lead gen is not $1 a day, I can assure you. New technology. Oh, we got to throw in a quick note about ChatGPT. Everybody familiar with ChatGPT? If not, get familiar because it's about to take over the world, seemingly. Oh, I just clicked out of that. And I think we've got some Q&A time left, a little bit.
The car collision companies, I didn't follow. I understand that getting the VIN number is how that translates to the type of car, got the photograph. But somebody's in the accident. How do they know to call that company over 25 other?
Right. So when we think about the moment of that collision, they're going to go where generally to look for help? They're going to go to Google, right? So part of it was we have to be good on Google, but the other side of it was this company wasn't the only one on Google, right? None of us, any of the SEO or the Google ads were never the only one there, right? So the goal was we knew we could get awareness because we could pay for that in Google ads. We know how to structure Google ads to make sure we're at the top of the page, which is what we do for clients when, it's what we do. We won't do campaigns generally on search without doing Google ads because of the dynamics of search. But to your question, by the way, the question was, how do we know, how did the customer find this brand, right? So yeah, so at the point of that accident or the point of that problem, they were almost always going to Google. I mean, sure, they might go on Facebook and ask for a referral if anyone knew anything, but largely all of his business came from Google.
So you're advertising instant estimate.
Right. I think, yeah, the campaign had something to do with, it definitely spoke to the fact that they didn't have to bring the car to the shop. And we made it, this was 2000, when we first started working with them, it was 2012. And there, I'm embarrassed by the app that we built, but we built this app, just a makeshift thing to make it available. But it worked. And then we made it a little bit better as time went on. And we don't build apps, by the way. We modified it into just a web form later. But yeah, so we made sure that at the moment of their need, we were present where they would likely go, channel. So we knew who they were. We knew what channel they were most likely to go on. And then we figured out how to get their attention. And I don't remember the ad copy, but it did have to say something like, get an estimate within 2 hours without bringing your car to the shop, something like that. Yeah. So it does go a little bit from demand into the conversion path, but if we do it right, if we spend the time with our buyer persona, we can just hijack it if it's an emergency. Not every business is an emergency, of course. Silk cards was not an emergency ever. Buying my stuff is never an emergency, like ever. So it's different for every industry based on that triggering event. Remember that at the beginning, I talked about the triggering event where it goes from, let's make them aware of who we are, and then what's the tip over point. So I hope that helps. Next question, Peter. Yeah, so Peter's question is about, Peter, tell us what you do again. Your gemstones for jewelry. And your question is related to how do we, if my audience is an affluent audience, a wealthy audience, how do we identify the pain points that they have that would make them more of a customer for your product? Yeah, so I think you touched on a little bit of that. That audience thinks and acts a certain way. And let's say you came to me and I don't know how they act because I've never operated with your product. What we're going to do is we're going to go where they go. We're going to go where they go. What are wealthy people doing? They are traveling. They are maybe reading magazines like the Robb Report. They are doing things. They are consuming information somewhere. And I'll tell you, one of the best things that you can do is if you can find a digital media source that they are likely to be consuming, and let's just say it's the Robb Report, for example. If you go to the robbreport.com and go to their advertise section, right? Go to their advertise section and see if they have a public media kit, which means they tell you what what it costs to advertise. It tells you who their audience is. It gives you all the demographics. It tells you all kinds of things about them. So that's one of the places we look at when we don't know the audience. We go to a digital media source where they already sell advertising to that consumer, and then we sort of start to reverse engineer there, assuming we don't know who that customer is initially. So that's one way to do it. But to pain point, what's the pain point that would get them to buy the jewelry? Well, there's got to be a little bit, couple of layers deep, because I'm sure you're not the only one cutting gems. Right. So if there's some more layers of work, and that would be more in the empathy map, where you would want to spend some time here. And again, I don't have a solid answer, but we would work through, how do we empathize with where they are? What else is on the market? What are they seeing? What may have they bought that they wouldn't want to go back and buy again? One of the things we love to do is we like to data mine consumer reviews from competitors who are maybe in the same category that you are, whether that is, it could be Amazon, it could be Google Shopping, it could be Google Maps if they're a local business, but you find gold in people's reviews. So what we do is we'll go, and by the way, I used to do this a lot myself, and now we'll pay a team to do it, but go find the reviews wherever the reviews are, take out the 5s, take out the 1s, and pull out the 2, 3s, and 4s, because you'll find the most value there. The 5s, generally, there's not enough value in the 5s because someone was a raving fan. The 1s, someone always likes to hate on people. The gold is in the 2, 3s, and 4s. And what you're finding is you're going to find them use words about the experience, use words about the product, use words about what they expected that they did or didn't get. And so we do that to help dig it in and it helps fill this in, as a matter of fact. You'll hear them, you'll literally see people tell their life story in reviews for customers or for products and services. Amazon is fantastic. If you can go to Amazon and find a media source there that they're reading. If you find someone that's written a book, I mean, your industry, maybe not a book, but if someone's written a book that's a bestseller to your customer and they sell to your customer, go mine their Amazon reviews. It's just gold. So finding these pain points and these triggering things, how your product can answer a need that's not being met in the market, it does take work. But I said before, the tactics are not that hard. The tactics are technical, but if we get the wrong messaging and we don't have the right pain points, it just kind of goes down the drain. But I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was perfect.
You're welcome. Online.
Hi, online.
Let's go.
So Charity is saying and asking, I'm interested in marketing for my real estate business, but tend to become introverted and fall away from socials at times and disengage to focus on my startup. I've continued to put off getting with digital marketing agency because I'm afraid I will not have time to give the info needed to produce my content. Can you give me solid advice on how to navigate this dilemma? Also, my startup is in social services and contract with the state. So I am only in need of awareness versus lead gen. Do you suggest digital marketing for awareness if the customer base is already locked in? So I think there's 2 questions there.
Yeah. And so there was a lot there. I'm gonna start with the end.
Okay.
If the startup is, I'm looking at the camera because you're there. Who asked that?
Her name is Charity.
Charity?
Yeah.
Charity. Thank you for the question, Charity. So the second part of the question is, if you're going after state, what was the last part? They're locked in?
So also my startup is in social services and contract with the state. So I am only in need of awareness versus lead gen. Do you suggest digital marketing for awareness if the customer base is already locked in?
No. In fact, so I'm on the board for a nonprofit, and their work, a lot of their funding comes from the state. We don't do digital marketing for them. However, we do digital marketing for the donors. So for social services, I don't know of a use case where digital. So here's the way I'll look at it. I'm going to go back to this idea of where is the buyer? Where is the lead? Where is the customer going to be? It's tough because that particular category of user or person, they are going to be on social media. That's the truth. They're going to be on social media. The key, though, is there aren't parameters that would allow us to show ads to them that we can say that we could segment away just for them. That makes it hard. She would be more apt to do something more like ABM here, where she knows who those people are. She can get a list of those people and she could go directly to them. But digital would be tough for social services, in my opinion. If you get your work contracted from the state, government work, school district, which is where our nonprofit is we're trying to penetrate that. It's a little tougher. It's not impossible, but you're going to end up having to spend some dollars and be okay with the wrong people saying it, hoping that the small right people will. And it was the first part of that question.
First part, I'm interested in marketing for my real estate business, but tend to become introverted and fall away from socials at times. Do you want me to continue to go?
No, I got it now. How do I create the content? How do I be involved how could I hire another agency without having to be involved with all the content?
Yes. Can you give me solid advice on how to navigate this alone?
Yeah, so the best thing I can tell you about it, and I hope, Charity, you agree that you have to have content to market online. So there's two ways to do it. We've been doing this 12 years now. So unfortunately, as an owner of a business where you are a personal, professional service business, and mind you, I was in the mortgage lending industry for 12 years. So I'm personal to that industry. I know it. The business is built on know, like, and trust. They choose realtors or lenders or insurance agents or financial planners because they trust you, not just because you know how to handle the MLS key and all that stuff like that. So you're going to need a content strategy. I get it, you're introverted. So here's the strategy that I would recommend. Well, so you can work with an agency that has a strategy that looks like this. And I happen to know an agency like this. We have a lot of clients that are really introverted. They don't want to be on camera. And I said later in my talk, that video is the #1 way to get in front of people. But a lot of people don't want to get on a camera, and that's fine. So we interview our customers. So if you work with an agency that will interview you behind closed doors or on a quiet Zoom meeting, and we take the 1 to 2 hour transcript and we ask all of the frequently asked questions that you would be asked during a buying process, what's going on in a first-time home buyer's mind? What's going on in this? We just unpack all the questions, which are going to be good for SEO. They're going to be good for social media. They're going to be good for email. They're going to be good for ads. And we just interview our clients once a month for 1 to 2 hours. And then we can take the transcript, clean it up, and then break it all apart. And then we can chop up all the videos from there. She doesn't have to be in the video, although I would ask her if she could just be unintroverted for 2 hours a month. It'll serve her very well. She can be introverted for the rest. But you can be introverted for the rest. But yeah, there's no way around content online. I mean, I think the data just shows video is outperforming. You can do graphics and images and things of that nature, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
She said amazing.
And I know a firm, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah, we do it.
Oh, okay.
That's our new product. It's called Expert Cast.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So anyway, if she wants to reach out, my number was in the slides. Yeah. Rob's question is, if you're a startup just getting started, limited resources, with all of the channels that are available, is there 1 or 2 that I would particularly focus on if I was B2B services, and why? Is that kind of right? Okay. So tell me your product again. Service?
So one of my companies, we offer product photography services.
Okay. E-commerce for e-commerce?
Yeah, for e-commerce.
Got it. Got it. Okay. You want to stick to that one?
Sure.
Yeah. So B2B product photography, that's going to be for e-commerce players. Yeah. So in that one, what goes to mind there is where that buyer would be in the journey of how they might go about finding you. So what we can think about quickly is, I would do 1 of 2 things. Are they going to search online for a product photographer? Possibly. Are they likely hanging out on social media? Definitely. Right? Those are probably the 2 best places. I doubt you're going to really have a good chance to find them there. So the first 2 I would think about, is this an organic SEO play? Could be potentially a PPC play. But if I'm thinking demand generation, broader awareness, I'm probably going to go to social media and run ads to e-com shop. You're tied to Amazon. So Facebook and Instagram particularly are very good at allowing you to target e-com sellers or e-com business owners. So you can do something called flex targeting, which is my own phrase, but a lot of people don't know in Facebook, you can go target, at age, male, female, etc. But then you could say, I only want to target a business owner, but then they also must follow Amazon FBA's Facebook page, or they might have to follow Shopify or WooCommerce or BigCommerce or something like that, if those match. I'm pulling those out of the air. That, from an awareness standpoint, it would be kind of a, did you know that we're a product photographer for Amazon FBA sellers? You could play that game on the social side. We would have to spend a little bit of time with SEO and PPC, but if I were you and I had limited resources, and I don't know what limited resources means, but SEO and PPC both take a considerable amount of resources, because SEO, you're gonna have to do a lot of content, a lot of SEO, a lot of backlinking. It's gonna take a lot of resources. PPC is ads, paying per click. Those are resources. And so if I'm limited in resources and I've got a little bit of time to build an audience, and again, that depends, but I'm probably gonna go to social and start to really try to cast a wide net. I'm probably gonna try to go to social and cast a wide net using perhaps a strategy with video, because you're a photo guy. So if you could have someone taking photos of you taking photos, right? You get someone taking videos or photos of you taking photos, that's gonna go a long way with that CPM model that we were talking about earlier. Really cheap. Can you buy, so Zoe asked, is building an email list good? And can we buy email lists that are as targeted as we could do with some of the other channels? The answer is yes, and let me just say this, because I did a talk a month ago here. Building an email list is still the #1 strategy we always recommend, period. Period, space. All of this stuff needs to lead to getting an email list, because we don't own Facebook, we don't own Google, we don't own any of it, right? So we have to build an email list. So can you buy email lists that are targeted to your audience? Yes. Do I recommend it? I don't recommend it because it's not something we would interject into what we do, but I do know companies who do that. And that's going to be kind of more of that account-based marketing strategy, where you're buying a list of targeted people that could be, like, for example, we're a HubSpot agency, we're a HubSpot partner. If I wanted to do outreach to people who only had the HubSpot software, I would go to a list broker of some sort where they could source that potentially this list are people of HubSpot users. And then what I would then do is proceed to build outbound email campaigns. I will give you a couple of thoughts on that, though, to be careful about. If you decide to do that and do direct cold outreach to email, which I get 1,000 of them a week or something, it seems like, what I would advise you is never do cold outreach on your primary web domain or primary email domain. You need to buy 3 or 5 subdomains, or my company's called yokolocal.com. If I was to launch a cold email campaign, I would want to go buy yokolocal.io or yokolocal.ai or yokolocal.co and put an email system on those domains, because you will burn a domain and the ISP will block that domain. It's just going to happen. Don't burn your main website domain and your main email. Peter's laughing. He must have done it. He must have done it a few times. So there's a strategy to it. I'm not good at it. I don't know it. Oddly enough, I'm actually talking to a company about doing it for us right now. And that's, I've been against it for years, but I'm also facing every other change in dynamics. So I'm trying not to be stubborn about change, right? So I'm exploring it, but those are a couple of things I would say to do. I'm not a fan of it because, to me, it's a binary situation, right? When I open an email from you, it's yes or no, I'm interested or I'm not. And it's binary, right? It's just a binary decision. And guess what the binary decision is most times?
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah.
Delete. And worse off, it could be spam, which is why you got to buy those So it's binary for me. And I just don't like binary. One of the best ways to write copy in advertising for any of this is, if you are blank, then blank. If you want to improve your presence online, then watch this video. The qualifier was this first statement, right? If you're interested, charity, if you're interested in buying a home with no money down, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. Click this link and watch this presentation. It's very simple to try to, and by the way, that's binary as well, but it's not expensive on social when we do that, because when you're buying CPM, if they don't interact with the ad, you don't pay. It's no big deal. It's no big deal, right? So I don't love outreach. I am exploring it right now, but it's a binary, and I think there's some brand reputation that can go with that, even if you're using secondary domains. But that's what I would advise if I were thinking about that.
Right, so don't send anything on the domain that I'm currently sending
No.
emails out on.
No, I'd stop. If you're sending them in mass, So if you're sending just 5 a day or 5 a week, 20, I'm saying if you're doing 5 or 10,000 emails a week or a month, you got to get some other domains.
And everyone I'm emailing, I've met.
That's a different story. Yeah, that's different. That's lead nurturing, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah. But I wouldn't buy a cold email list and add it to my HubSpot newsletter and no, I wouldn't do that. I'd keep them separate and warm them up over here and get them to opt in over here to your main thing. I'm a big believer in opt-in marketing. I'm sorry, Seth Godin, anybody read the book Permission Marketing from a couple decades ago? If you haven't, it's a great book. And I didn't read the book before I came up with this concept, but I just believe I want you to vote me into your world, and I'm okay if that's a no, but I'm not going to try to shove my stuff in your face, right? I'm going to put an ad out that says, if this, then that. Like, if you want to learn how to improve your email open rates, then check out this video. You either do or you don't, but I'm not offended, you're not offended if you're just not interested in that. But if I just say, hire our agency 50% off, it's just there. It's all in your face, right? So just a style of marketing that I use. So now if I was venture funded and I had to burn capital, I might, different story. If I had to burn capital at a fast rate, but anyway, I put this back on the screen again, in case you guys have any follow-up questions. You can follow me on social if you want, or interact with me. The website is here if you'd like. I'm happy if you want to come join the community, that's perfectly fine too. The community just got started a month or two ago. I believe in being a resource. I really do. If we ever do business together, great. That'll be a triggering event that you get to decide on. I just want to help the community, and I've been blessed to be in this game for 32 years now, surprisingly. And I'm only 53 this year, 53. So I've been very lucky, and it hasn't always gone well. So I've got enough bruises and bumps, and I was out of 6 businesses, 4 of them, and they were okay. Two did all right though. So we'll talk about the 2. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you guys next week.